what exactly is the Democratic proposal going forward? Well, it can't be that their own strong governance. As always, the Democratic proposal is that Republicans are worse at it than they are. And a key component of this is finding people to tie Republicans to who Republicans don't actually like very much. This became easier the other day when the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, had Nick Fuentes over for dinner. He said it was by accident. We have no reason not to believe that it was by accident. He invited Kanye West to dinner. Ye, who has become a ragingly open anti-Semite. He had West over to dinner, and West brought along with him Nick Fuentes. Well, this opened up an entire line of attack on Republicans, which again is one of the reasons why Republicans might want to consider whether this is the sort of baggage that they wish to carry with them into 2024. At this point, Donald Trump has more baggage than Sam Brinton, who's literally stealing women's luggage off the carousel. And so, in any case, you can see the Democratic game here. So they took Nick Fuentes, they take Nick Fuentes and they tie Fuentes and his despicable and odious views to Republicans. Now, I gave a full speech in 2016 at Stanford University talking about Fuentes' movement and the white supremacism that was rising on the radical right. So this has been on my radar for quite a while, obviously. But the whole point here is that this person was not a part of mainstream Republican talk at any point. And even people who had been previously associated with Fuentes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, spoke at the AFPAC conference, the America First Political Action Conference led by Fuentes. Even she has now denounced Fuentes and says she wants nothing to do with him. Trump has said he didn't know him. He hasn't said that much yet. But what this is allowing is it's allowing the Democratic media, because it's a propaganda outfit, to basically link Fuentes to every Republican. So now playing a game where they take Fuentes' comments and they play them in juxtaposition with Republican comments and say that they think the same thing. It's a really, really dishonest game. The Daily Show with Trevor Noah did this last night. And it's worth going through it because this is going to be the Democratic meme for the next 6 months or so. It's going to be that every Republican is actually Nick Fuentes in disguise, which is a lie. Nick Fuentes is a nut job who believes nutty things and evil things, by the way. The game that they play here is done through what we would usually call selective editing. What you do is you take one sentence from one person, you place it next to one sentence from another person, and then you claim that they're exactly the same thing. And by this sort of association, you can link anybody with the worst people in the world. This is the game that we play on Twitter, where a perfect example, a few weeks ago, before the election, people were saying they were deeply concerned about inflation. And somebody on the left tweeted out, you know who else was concerned about inflation? And it was a picture of Hitler. And so the idea was that if Hitler was concerned about inflation and you were concerned about inflation, well, this meant that you were Hitler. So this is the game that we play here. So what you're about to see here is a mashup of some things that Fuentes says that are completely nutty in very short spurts, connected with things that are unrelated said by Republicans in short spurts and then juxtaposed to make it sound like they're saying the same thing. Or Fuentes saying something that actually is not totally nutty, because nobody says nutty things all the time. Any nut you think of, any schizophrenic on the subway who's babbling nonsensically, eventually will hit a sentence that actually sounds like something coherent. That doesn't mean that you agree with everything the schizophrenic says. In any case, this is the game that the Daily Show with Trevor Noah is playing here. They'd love to elevate Fuentes. They'd love to make this guy more famous, because the goal here is, of course, to tie everybody to. This is the game it's called nut picking. Okay, there's a thing that's been happening in politics for a very long time. You take the most crazy person and you tie that person to every Republican. You smear every Republican with Todd Aiken talking about rape. And then you ask them about this. It's not a game, by the way, that anybody ever plays in the media with regard to the left. And nobody in the media ever, when Ilhan Omar was saying openly anti-Semitic stuff, the media did not make it their mission to track down every single Democrat and get their opinion on Ilhan Omar's comments. They just didn't. They waited for Nancy Pelosi to issue some sort of milquetoast statement, and they said, oh, it's over. It's over. I guess we're done here. And that's the game. Here's a little bit of the mashup. We'll go through it because, again, it's worthwhile seeing the kind of deceptive tactics that they're using here.
You know, they say about America, they say, diversity is our strength.
How precisely is diversity our strength?
You got to recognize the fact
pause
that
it right
this
there.
is
So he says, how is diversity our strength? Okay, Fuentes saying the thing there does not mean that the thing is untrue if what you're talking about is that racial diversity by its very nature is a strength. The evidence that racial diversity by its very nature is a strength is unsupportable. Now, Fuentes' solution for that is white supremacy. It's basically white nationalism across the United States. My solution to the issue of racial diversity is that it's completely irrelevant. That diverse points of view are good, and that we ought to have open debates. But that race being a non-factor means that we shouldn't actually look at people's skin color. His solution is precisely the opposite. So they juxtapose him with Tucker. Okay, so Tucker's idea is that race shouldn't matter when it comes to, for example, admissions to college. Fuentes' idea is that diversity is not our strength, therefore it should be all white people. Those are two completely disparate points of view, but if you mash them up together, they sound like the same thing.
That this is a godless country. I hate it.
You're right. They're godless. That is exactly right. I never talk like that, but it's
Okay, pause it
true.
right there. Okay, so again, this idea that if you say that God has gone absent from the public square, that you're in league with Nick Fuentes. No, Nick Fuentes literally says that he wants a Catholic dictatorship in the United States. That is not the same thing as what Tucker Carlson is saying. This is the stupidest game. And again, the media love playing this game. And you can do it with anybody. It's super simple. We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, there is no better gift than the gift of fine pearl jewelry you didn't spend a fortune on this season. At the Pearl Source, you get the highest quality pearl jewelry up to 70% off retail prices. By cutting out the middleman, the Pearl Source eliminates crazy jewelry store markups and sells directly to you, the consumer. The holidays are just around the corner, and now is the time to start shopping. Do not wait until it's too late. Shop the Pearl Source from the comfort of your home. You'll find the largest selection of pearls available anywhere. Each piece is custom-made specifically for you. The Pearl Source offers fast and free 2-day shipping on every order. Your order will come prepackaged in a beautiful jewelry box ready to be given. If you're not sure if you'll love the gift, the Pearl Source solves that with a no-hassle 60-day money-back guarantee with free return shipping, so it is risk-free. With more than 25 years in the pearl business and nearly 20,000 5-star reviews, when you're shopping with the Pearl Source, you know you're shopping with a trusted company. I've given pearls from the Pearl Source to my wife. I got some pearl earrings for my daughter. They just make beautiful, beautiful stuff. This holiday, give the gift of beautiful pearl jewelry that can be passed down from generation to generation. For a limited time, my listeners can take 20% off your entire order. Head on over to thepearlsource.com/Ben. Enter promo code Ben at checkout for 20% off your entire order. That's thepearlsource.com/Ben. Enter promo code Ben at checkout. If you want fine pearl jewelry at the best prices online, go straight to the source, the Pearl Source. If tomorrow I wanted to cut up Trevor Noah and the translated speeches of Adolf Hitler, you could find similarities because, as it turns out, people say lots of things. And a lot of those things taken out of context can look similar. It's really corrupt and really gross, but you can see the game that they're playing.
Black people are violent, you know?
They have chaos and violence in their communities.
Send the military into these black neighborhoods.
Okay, stop it right there. Okay, so that is not the same thing. Again, not the same thing. He says black people are violent, Fuentes, which is a racist thing, that black people are inherently violent. Nonsense and it's crap. Black people are not inherently violent. There's no genetic capacity that makes black people violent. That's pure racism. Then they go to Matt Schlapp, and he says there's a lot of violence in black communities. That is statistically true. There is a lot of violence in a lot of black communities in the United States. But that's not because of their race. That's because of lack of policing. That's because of poverty. That is because of lack of fathers in the homes. Right? They're taking two completely separate things and mashing them together and saying they're the same. It's the most corrupt game, man.
Make the streets safe. They'll complain about it. It doesn't matter.
We should send in the troops if necessary to restore order.
Enough with the Jim Crow stuff.
Okay, pause it right there. Again, so he's saying Fuentes is saying we should just knock heads together and like beat the hell out of everybody and that'll fix the problem. Tom Cotton was saying in the middle of riots, those are not the same thing. He was saying in the middle of the Black Lives Matter riots, which did $2 billion in damage, that if you have to activate the National Guard to stop rioting, that you should. How are those the same thing? But if you put some cello music underneath with a repeated bass line, apparently they're the same.
Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big deal.
Oh, the legacy of Jim Crow. That was 67 years ago. It is ancient history.
Okay, pause it right there. Again, two completely separate things. So Fuentes says that segregation was not a big deal and or was good and that he's in favor of it. And Tucker is saying that there are people today who invoke Jim Crow wrongly, who say that voting law in Georgia, for example, is the new Jim Crow. It is not the new Jim Crow. That's Tucker's point. And in order for him to make that point, he has to believe that Jim Crow is bad. But Fuentes believes Jim Crow was good. The reason I'm taking time with this, guys, is because this is the game that gets played so often in politics, and it's ugly and it's stupid. You can play this game as often as you want with any political figure. Now, this does necessitate that politicians be careful about who they associate with and have to dinner, obviously, because that allows for the media to make these sorts of connections and then smear everybody on earth with it. But it's really vile stuff here from the team over at Daily Show. You can always tell by the length of the clips, by the way. Because there's no world in which you can play 3 straight minutes of a Nick Fuentes clip and then 3 straight minutes of a Tom Cotton clip and say these guys are the same. There's just no way to do it. So they don't. They play about 6 seconds of a Nick Fuentes clip and then about 4 seconds of a Tom Cotton clip and go, aha, that looks pretty similar, doesn't it? Doesn't it? That's the pathetic silliness that we're seeing here. So this is a tendency that we should watch out for when the media play this sort of stuff. Now, as I say before, as I began this with, this is why Republicans should not associate with cretins. This is why it was bad for President Trump to have Ye West and Nick Fuentes over for dinner. And again, Trump has said that he didn't know who Fuentes was and that he has no association with Fuentes. Fine. Okay, but that sort of irresponsible decision-making has consequences for everyone because this is the game that Democrats always make the same. Everything is the same thing. January 6th is the same thing as voting for Trump. Protesters of the election were the same thing as people who broke into the Capitol building. It's all one and the same. Nick Fuentes is the protesters who are the January 6th rioters, who are criminals, who are every supporter of Trump. It's all one big mush-mush. Right? Just smush it together, and that's the Republican Party. Don't let them do that. It is illogical, and it is deeply, deeply dishonest. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.